after the wonderful 5 films we've just experienced and moved the soul. My name is Khalid Ali. I'm of Sudanese origin. I work here in the UK as a clinical academic in Brighton and Sussex Medical School, but I'm also a Global Health Film Fellow and Film and Media Correspondent for Medical Humanities, British Medical Journal, and founder of a medical film festival in Egypt called MedFest Egypt. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here with you tonight, and I'd like to invite my panel members first. Let's welcome Talal Afifi. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome next Erica Carter, a professor of German and Film Studies from King's College London. Thank you. Phil Cox, the director and producer of The Spider-Man of Sudan. I'd like also to invite to the podium Susanna Merghani, the director of Al-Sit. Susanna, thank you. And I'd like to invite Mazin Mohammed, one of the crew and the filmmakers of, come and join us please, or Bricks of Life, Toba Lahunna. Mazin, come and join us please. Thank you. So it's a great pleasure to have such an esteemed group of filmmakers and activists and creative artists. I'd like first to start by asking Talal. Talal, I must congratulate you on an amazing selection of a panorama of contemporary Sudanese cinema from 2016 to 2022. You shared with us different aesthetics, films from different styles, narratives, backgrounds, filmmakers who are not traditional, or they haven't been studied film as an academic profession. What were, and then the title is aptly labeled as Windows to Renewed Hope. I'd like to ask you about your vision when curating this program, and what were your hopes for the audience here to feel and be inspired with what we've just seen?
Thank you, Khalid, and thank you, everyone. And actually, I need to thank all the directors and producers and everyone who worked on these films and other films that we didn't see yet. When I started to bring this collection together, I thought after this war, the outbreak of the war in April 2023, that we as Sudanese, before speaking to the world, we as Sudanese need to see ourselves from different perspectives. And maybe this can lead to a part of the answer or a part of the puzzle of why is what happening now happening. I tried also to bring together different modules of production, like self-funded films, like Kordofani's film, like a total collaboration and collective of filmmakers, plus some support of the private sector, like Hifnat Tamr, and the module of independent filmmaker who had collaboration and co-productions with international and regional institutes like SIT. This is also beside that these films are very nice films. Films deserve to be screened every now and then, and people should see these films and know more about the directors and about the process they made in making the films.
Thank you very much, Talal, for sharing with us your vision behind this program. I'd like now to move next to Erica, and I'd like to start by quoting Mohammed Kordofani, the director of Nirkuk, the film we've just seen. Mohammed Kordofani is also the director of the well-known film Goodbye Julia, which premiered at Uncertain Regard section at the Cannes Film Festival in May last year and won the Freedom Award. Mohammed, in his panel discussion after the film screening in Cannes, he said, today's developments and topics tackled by the Sudanese up-and-coming filmmakers do not come out of the blue. They are a result of many facts accumulated over past decades. Going back half a century, we will find many important cinematic gems that contributed greatly to Sudanese cinema history. So I'd like to ask Erica, the link between what we've just seen and tomorrow's, and this may be a plug to tomorrow's evening, Vanguard Cinema, the archives of Hussein Sharif. So how do you see the two genres or generations of filmmakers, contemporary and Hussein Sharif generation, and the other wonderful filmmakers talking to each other and communicating with each other?
Thank you very much. Well, I have been privileged for the past 4 years to be working with Talal and with the daughter of Hussein Sharif, who many of you will know as an artist, filmmaker and poet and defender of democratic rights and freedoms in Sudan. So Iman Hussein, his daughter, is here in the audience sitting alongside Nasra, another daughter of Hussein Sharif. And I've been privileged to work to try and recover the scattered archive films and documents of Hussein Sharif, who lived for many years between London and Khartoum before going into exile in 1989 and dying very sadly in exile in 2005 in Cairo. I think I'd like to answer your question more generally in many ways. One of the things, because I think this is also in the spirit of Hussein Sharif, if I may make so bold, one of the things that really struck me watching those films, particularly now, and I think many of us were very, very moved by what they say about what's going on now in Sudan. And it struck me that there is a kind of truism that every film is the archive of a possible future. And it seems to me that that's exactly what's happening in all of these films. They're all about a future that is just within somebody's grasp and that somehow eludes them. And we know what happened to many of those futures. But one of the things that motivates me as a film historian who doesn't know Sudan, I mean, I was about to go to Sudan to work with Talal there when the war broke out. One of the things that motivates me to go back into the archive is this sense that it might hold exactly the key to futures, and this in a situation where it's not at all just the archive of Hussein Sharif, or, for example, the Sudanese film group, a slightly younger generation who also worked with Hussein Sharif, have now been doubly exiled, have gone back, had to leave, or many of them have left Khartoum now again, after having been exiled in 1989. There's also, the major archive in Khartoum, the Sudan Radio and TV, which has been one of the largest film archives on the African continent, but is now right in the centre of the conflict and threatens to be lost. So the memory of a nation threatens to disappear. So it seems to me we have to hold on to those films in order to be able to make possible futures. So that's what motivates the work that I've been doing.
Thank you very much, Erica, for highlighting the importance and the urgency of preserving these archives. And that makes me move nicely into asking Phil about the documentation of what is recently we've seen in the 2019 and 20, and the revolution after the coup. I know that you have got a very loving relationship with Sudan. So tell us about your experience. How did you get to be a Sudanese at heart and identify your character and the journey over the years? Because I don't think this was your first time going to Sudan. Your history with Sudan goes a long way back. So tell us about your story with Sudan, and particularly the character in the film in the context of the cultural activism.
Okay, thank you. So I started working in North Darfur around 2003, 2004. And that was mainly in journalism and reportage, but also with Sudanese Darfuri journalists. So then I was in and out of Sudan for quite a while. And actually then I spent an awkwardly loving period in Kobar prison in Sudan in 2017, which is actually where I met a whole different community of Sudanese, from street level to people who've been in politics for 70 years. And that really brought me into a different relationship with a lot of the Khartoum life, Sudanese community. And I got back to this film because in 2021 I was looking for a way to go back actually to see my friends from prison. And I ran a workshop with some Sudanese journalists in Khartoum, and suddenly outside the window there was it all started, the coup. And I started looking for a story, and in my workshop there was a young Sudanese woman who was translating, called Rafa Renas, and she was actually the sharpest person in the room.
She's your co-director in the film,
yeah,
Rafa Renas.
So the two of us started to look for a story, and we were self-financed, and it was just three of us looking. Giovanna Steponi is the producer. So the three of us were looking for a story, and I saw this man leaping across from lampposts to cars and things. And I realized that was a headline, but when we managed to catch him, which was hard because he ran everywhere, I realized that there was this wonderful duality in his life. He lived these two lives, and actually the gem of him really was in this other life that he led as a science teacher, teaching for free in community. And somehow that represented so much of what was going on in Sudan, individuals, collectives, communities, organizing, contributing, a positivity, a vision, a root, a depth. And I realized I couldn't make it for news because they demanded 3 minutes, 4 minutes. But there was a space in between where we could make our own film, and I started to work with him, and the three of us, Giovanna, Rafa, and myself, we made it and then came with The Guardian.
It's interesting as well to note that the partners who came on board, The Guardian, the Pulitzer Center, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So tell us about how you brought this.
Well, partners, they're there. They're always, maybe they don't come on till the film is finished. But of course they were wonderful. They came on. But people don't know quite what to think, and so it's up to us. That's the filmmaker, who has to. The filmmaker has to take the risk, has to commit, and so your relationship to the subject, your responsibility to them. In this film, Spidey reveals himself. He could have been killed and hunted for that. So we had to make sure that he was safe and out of the country before we allowed that part of the film to be in. But as a dramatist, you want that reveal. It's about working, they're real people and your responsibilities are how you manage that, and then how you manage to get the film made and funding, and it's a kind of tightrope, so you're juggling all the time, but that's quite normal for all of us.
Thank you, Phil, for sharing. But the ethical, you highlighted the very important element here, the ethical responsibility of the filmmakers to their subject, especially in documentary filmmaking. I'll move on to Susanna now. I'd like to ask you, we've seen several stories spanning different generations, and that's particularly noticeable in your film, Susanna. So tell us about the Nafisa, her parents, her mom and dad, and her grandmother, Al-Sid, the central character, and how this story came about.
Thanks. First of all, thanks to the SAFAR Film Festival, Rabih, the organizers, and Talal for putting this program together. And we were just talking about distribution, right? And screening, and for people to be able to see it. For me, there wasn't at the time, and probably still is not. I'm very happy to see the film about the women in the bricks. For me, there was not enough stories about women from Sudan, films about women from Sudan. And so I wanted my first film to be about more than just one kind of woman. So it's 3 generations. You see the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother. And their various philosophies of life and love, and how they approach the very same subjects from extremely different angles. But they all do it with love in mind. They all do it with care in mind. So however control they input on the girl is coming from a good place. It's just not allowing her to make her own choices. And for me, I mean, I was that age, growing up in Sudan, around that age when I left. So I always say that my relationship to Sudan is I will forever be frozen in time as a teenage girl. And so that's how I think of Sudan, that's my relationship to Sudan. And the next time I went back to Sudan was 20 years later to make this film.
Thanks, Susanna. I'd like to again refer to the title of this program that Talal brilliantly put together, Windows to Renewed Hope. Can you tell us a bit about, I see you as a pillar, as a reason for hope for the new generations. You all work together beautifully. There's a community, as Phil said, of filmmakers. But tell us about your initiative, about bringing new voices from women filmmakers that you mentioned, you told me about before, with Leila Abu Laila. Just tell us about this experience of supporting and nurturing new talent.
Yeah, so I run a workshop called Aflam Banat, which is a script writing workshop, both in English and Arabic. And I did this first officially with the global media makers and Film Independent. They gave me a small grant, and I ran a workshop that was supposed to be 2 months. It ended up being a year, ongoing, and it is still ongoing because you can't let these projects die, right? This is not, I'm not an institution. I'm a person, and I want to make sure that their films get made. The film may not get made, but at least the script will be complete. The script will be in a place that they can actually go out and look for funding and so on. So I have never actually refused a request from a Sudanese girl to help her with her script. And so this is something that I'm doing ongoing, so tell your Sudanese script writing friends. And just any help, whether it's just to read it or to give advice or for long-term advice. So for the Aflam Banat project, I just wanted to make sure to bring together the Sudanese women that I know working in the arts. And these are people that I had some kind of contact with in the past, including Leila Abu Laila and Fatma Wardi, Marwa Zain. I tried to gather as many Sudanese women as possible, and it was really a beautiful project.
Thank you very much, Susanna, for sharing. And I do echo what you just said, that Susanna actually is an academic and a researcher based in Qatar, but I always ask her for updates on what's happening in the Sudanese film industry because of her encyclopedic knowledge of what's in the pipeline, what's new film. Thank you very much, Susanna. Now I'd like to ask Mazen, we've seen different types of production or teams, but Touba Lahunna, Bricks of Life, I see it's very much a family project. You, your sister, Razan, the director of the film.
And also my other sister.
Indeed.
Lena.
So tell us about, I see it as a labor of love, this film. And Razan, tell us about when Razan made the film and how you all came together to make this beautiful short film.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Ali and Mr. Talal and SAFAR Festival. This is actually the final project of Razan. Like, she was about to graduate from the American University in Dubai, and most of her colleagues were doing documentaries in Dubai. And she was like, nah, we have so many stories in Sudan that we need to cover. And she told us in a WhatsApp message, I'm coming to film a documentary film in Darfur. There was a lot of debate in the house from my parents. Should we allow her or not? and then Mazen.
Out of love as well.
Out of love, indeed, yeah. But once they know that I'm going, Lena is coming to help in sound, and we just booked our plans and we went there. But I had a very very nice comment from one of the audience here, and he said, "I love that they were so comfortable in front of the camera." We spent 10 days, almost 10 days in Nivasha camp, just to convince them, just to be able to stay with them, so we make them familiar with our faces, with our stories, and yeah, it has 10 days of convincing, 2 days filming. So it was really interesting. But yeah, the experience was, and another thing is that helped is also my social media influence. When I went there, Razan was doing all the logistics with the people there. They didn't know that I'm her brother, but they watched me on YouTube. So when I arrived, they were like, "Mazen is here? Why you're here?" I was like, "Yeah, she's my sister," and that's why it was like they were helping us with so much love, and they were like trying to remove all the obstacles, especially in the camp, Nivasha camp or Abu Shok camp.
Thank you. I should add that Razan made 2 films. The second film was filmed in Dubai, Blood. So tell us a bit about that, so the audience are,
Razan, in her last year, she had to provide 2 films in the first semester and the second semester. In the first semester, she did another film about women stories as well. It was about menstruation and the struggles of how girls, or the first period. So she gathered girls in Dubai, and she had interviews with them. Very, very poetic film. Yeah.
I'd like to ask now about Razan. She studied. I think is it true that you lived most of your life in Dubai? So the choice of going back to Western Sudan, to Darfur, to tell the story of those women in particular. So how did that come about? Why did Razan choose that particular story to tell?
We lived in Saudi Arabia actually, and then we moved to Sudan, and she went to study in Dubai. But me and Sudan, we created the Visit Sudan page on Facebook. It has like 500,000 followers right now, and we started traveling with Razan since 2015. We started traveling around Sudan, in the Red Sea, the northern state, and also in Kordofan. And she was like, "Mazen, we need to do more videos and more films about the stories we are making. You are making YouTube videos, but we should make documentaries and short documentaries." And yeah, therefore was a reason that we need to go and cover stories that people that never heard of, and that's why we decided to go to Darfur.
Thank you. And those stories resonate on a universal, scale or platform. Thank you very much, panel. And then I'd like to open the floor to the audience for questions or comments. Whoever wants to start, please do share with us your name and the question or any comments on any of the films that we've seen tonight. Yes, please. First question, and then the mic is on its way.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you. My name's Oliver. I really liked all the films. I always have a problem with short films that they don't satisfy me, but all the characters kept me intrigued, and there was never right and wrong, except in maybe the documentaries with the men in the brick, the kiln film. Where can I see more Sudanese films apart from tomorrow? how do I watch these films made in Sudan?
A platform for Sudanese cinema in the UK, apart from the wonderful SAFAR Film Festival, but where do we see those films around the year?
Mainly in film festivals, European Arab film festivals. Some of them began to be on platforms like Netflix, and some are on YouTube. And there are different exhibitions which are announced in different times of the year. So mainly these are the places and spaces where we can do. Phil, do you know more about this?
It's in the works with Erica, no?
Yes, it is in the works, but it'll take a while, I think, is what I'm going to say about archive films. But you may know something more about contemporary films, you and Susanna.
Well, I think, yeah, they're there, some of them. You just have to be able to be searching on YouTube. I know, I mean, part of the people involved in SAFAR and Talal and Erica are part of the project to work on archiving and platforming Sudanese visual work over the last, since it began, and preserving that. So I think that's something that will be happening. But for your film, Erica?
For short films in general, whether it's from Sudan or from anywhere else, it's very difficult to find distribution and platforms to find them on anyway. So add on top of that, like the situation that Sudanese films face. If you're very lucky, it might get picked up by a network. It might be on Netflix, for example, or it could be pirated. So you can just try Googling it.
Yeah, I saw your film pirated. That's right, even though it's on Netflix. So which is no bad thing.
Maybe I should add, this is a plea to SAFAR Film Festival programmers and organizers. Amani was here early, or she might still be here. Sort of a rolling program throughout the year for the films that we don't get to see, Arab cinema and Sudanese cinema, regularly on cinemas. So a whole year-round program for Arab and Sudanese cinema. Second question, please. Thank you.
There was, yeah. Thank you. Hi. First of all, thank you guys very much for, sharing these stories about the Sudanese people. I had one question, and especially since we ended on the note of the Spider-Man film, that I just can't help but ask. How do we, as an audience, support Sudanese resistance, and how do we, actually make tangible help for what's going on for the people who we owe tonight, all of us, we owe the Sudanese people the reason why we're here, the reason we had the night out, and etc. So how would we go about, I don't know if anyone has any resources. How do we support them? And I also wonder how the Spider-Man is doing. Is he okay? That's my second question.
Phil?
Spidey's well. Thank you for asking. So he continued working in his school after the film. We had to look after him when the film came out, and then he went back, and we got a lot of support for his school, which grew with computers and solar panels, all sorts of exciting things. Then when the war happened, we helped him escape. He's now in East Africa, and I think, he's maybe some mini Spider-Mans are coming along. I'm not sure, but possible. As regards to supporting and contributing, I think especially in the last few years, there's always the issue of large institutions, governments and agencies, and then community level resistance committees. And those two things have always somehow been divided, and where aid has gone, where political support has gone. So I know that, through Eyes on Sudan and hashtag, that community kitchens and people who were there on the ground in small collectives can be found and supported. But perhaps Talal knows better on that.
Yeah, as Phil said, there are a lot of collectives in Sudan, in Khartoum and Omdurman, in Al-Fashir, Jenaina, Al-Gadarif, and they are working on different aspects, on kitchens, supporting medical aids, etc. And yeah, they can be found under the hashtag Keep an Eye on Sudan. And with direct communication with the pages admins, you can find a way to support. Also, spreading the word about Sudan is something very important. And spreading the word about all what is happening in the south of the world, in Palestine, or Syria, or Sudan, or Yemen. Or it's too tough, and it's unbelievable that this is happening now and again after the Second World War, and again we are doing this again, genocide. And so yeah, spreading the word, keeping an eye, connecting and communicating, and getting back or bringing back the spirit of solidarity. This is something that we miss. It's not just شعور بالعطف, it's solidarity. And yeah, bringing this value back will help a lot, not only Sudanese people, but people from the whole oppressed region.
Thank you, Talal. Thank you. There's a question over there, and then one at the back, please. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for these great movies. Like I do remember that when we starting Sudan Film Factory, I do remember Markaz Omdurman al-Thaqafi, like Omdurman Culture Center, and Mr. Talal Afifi, and they're trying to do something good in Sudanese, and we've been at that time, like during the revolution. So, and you said, Mr. Khalid, about what Muhammad Kurdufani said during the festival, like the next 2 decades, it could be bring more stories and more things from Sudan. So, question to Talal Afifi, thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for this all efforts. With the hopes, like, of bring more stories, or how, because I do believe that the directions, the people who do art, they've seen the stories of the Sudanese people from different part of view. It's not like the normal other peoples, but could you give us a small hopes, like the next 2 decades, it could be bring more Sudanese stories and films?
Your projections for the future.
Before this war, I was a very happy person, and I always thought and said that the only thing that is developing in Sudan is film. But now I can still say that filmmakers, Sudanese filmmakers, have a good bond. It's becoming a large community, and people in film community now are digging, looking after different narratives, which brings more democratization to the screen. And I see in the coming 10 years, we will have a very strong, colorful, beautiful film scene in Sudan. I know that Amjad Abu Al-Ila is working on something, Mohammed Al-Umda, Susanna is working, so I can see that we have in the pipeline a lot of great stories to see and to wait for.
Thank you very much, Talal. A question from the kind lady.
I can't see it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's not a question.
Comments are okay.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for this very heartwarming and nostalgic evening. I was very eager to watch a lot of these films, like the Nyarkuk and Asit, and I was glad that I had the chance to watch all of them today. And I think this is the role of the artists and Sudanese diaspora around the world, to keep Sudan alive and to remind the world about the Sudan forgotten war that's not happening right now. And we hope to see a lot more of this talent. And thank you, Suzanne. I'm so glad that I saw you today. And I'm so glad that I saw Talal as well. So, yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you to you for sharing your heartfelt emotions. Any more questions? Yes, maybe 2 more questions, and then we'll ask the panel members to comment. One, and then at the front, please.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it today, and it just showed me my beloved Sudan, which I still believe or hope that it remains the intact Sudan that we know. Actually, my question is about preserving all the history of the films of Sudan. We know in 1989 when Omar al-Bashir and his cronies has come and took over, we know that they have destroyed a lot of things, which I think it's Sharia law, so we lost a lot already. I think apart from a few things that was being kept with people, personal. So I'm not sure whether we have any archival films, because I'm sure that tomorrow is something about archival film or old films. But what is the prospect and what is the vision for the history of the films of Sudan? Because obviously there's so many films. I've seen some films when I was very, very young, like Torajer in somewhere, something like that. So all these films, what is going to happen? We know that everything is destroyed. So has all these things been kept digitally? How do we preserve it? For us people who know Sudan as it is now, which may not remain the same Sudan, I'm very keen to know what do you think about that. Sorry for being lengthy.
Okay, thanks very much. That's a question, as you can imagine, very close to my heart, and it's also one that isn't easy to answer. There are, I mean, as I said, the Archive of Sudan Radio and TV, for example, which holds documentary, newsreel, and so on, films since the 1940s, is in peril, and it's really not clear what will happen. I mean, one of the many tragedies but in particular in relation to film in Sudan, is that there was a digitization project. You say, are all the films digitized? No, by no means. In that archive, for example, 2,000 reels of film, cans of film were digitized, but the hard drive is still in the archive and was never got out before the war. So that project may also have foundered. There's an organization in Berlin, the Arsenal Institute for Film and Video Art, who Talal and I have been working with. They've had since the early 2010s a whole program of working collaboratively and globally with endangered people trying to safeguard endangered audiovisual archives. And one of the things that we've been doing is trying to put together a register of archival film that's held outside Sudan, or that is salvageable from within Sudan. So that work is ongoing, and the Arsenal does hold some important collections in that regard, and we're trying to work out where other films currently are. This work is ongoing. I've also been working, so King's College also has been the home for a huge digital archiving project called Sudan Memory, which was initiated in 2013 by the Sudanese Association for Archiving Knowledge. Some films are held, so Sudan Memory was part of that big digitization project in Sudan Radio and TV. and they hold some films and a lot of information on films. So it's a very complicated picture. There will be people in this room who will know of many other collections and many other sources, and we're trying at the moment to get some kind of overview and then think about how the films can be made available. Talal or Susanna, I don't know whether you want to add anything.
Yeah, and to have some collections like Jadala Jubara's collection, his films, and a lot of many hours of his shot material stocks were all digitized and are now kept in a good condition. The films themselves, the 35 and 16 millimeter, are kept in a good condition in Germany, in Berlin. Also, the collection of the Sudanese film group, it's about 12 films. They are also preserved and recolored and then digitized, and the original copies and negatives are kept. Now we are working on Hussein Sharif's project collection, trying to digitize his films and keep them. Plus, we have some attempts now after the war to bring collections from Khartoum to take them outside Sudan. It needs a lot of communication with both sides, military and RSF. But we have to do this to bring this material out and to keep it for coming generations. This is now really a mission that we have to do.
Thank you very much, Erika and Talal.
I was just going to say that's from the institutional level, but then from like a personal perspective, if it's just a matter of viewing, you could probably, most Sudanese filmmakers would be happy to share links with you. Like I'm talking about contemporary filmmaking, not on an institutional level about archiving, if it's just a question of screening the film or viewing the film. And then, of course, the great irony is that the British Film Institute, we were just talking about this earlier with Omloda, the British Film Institute has a colonial archive film. Every film made in and about Sudan up until the 1950s is available, just not films made by Sudanese filmmakers.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Final question from Noor, please.
Well, I have no questions. I just want to thank you all for this great time we had and for these little films that I felt, well, my English is not that good, but I hope I can do it in a right way. I felt that these films, awake the heart and the mind. And this is such a great job. So I'd like to ask you all, please, just to try to keep on producing more. I know how difficult it is, but we need that. Sometimes the art is the sound that should not be stopped, should not be silenced. When other sounds are, just cut. So I'd like to thank you so much, really. And I have a very small little question. It might be a little bit stupid, but it's something in my head. For the movie Tuba Lahun, what's meant by the word Tuba? Is the brick itself or Tuba the heaven?
It's sort of, it plays, I think it plays on two. Maybe Mazen is the best person to answer that, and then I'll add my comment. Mazen.
Yeah, it's both. Like, we wanted to play in the title, play with words, and I don't remember the real inspiration behind it, but Razan has perfect explanation in Al Arabiya interview. But actually, the film, the title of the film, it was like brainstorm. It was a brainstorming session, and we sat together. And actually, someone mentioned that, let's say Tuba. Tuba means Tuba, yeah, the brick itself. But then we were like, nah, it's weak. How we can make it stronger? And then Razan came up with Tuba Lahon, but we're gonna write it with the Ta Marbuta. Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And at the end of this, we'd like to send our greetings to our friends and families in Sudan and all those who are displaced around the world. Thank you very much to the programmers, to Amani and the curator, Rabi' of the program. Thank you for the audience for your participation and appreciation. And please do join me in thanking and applauding the fantastic panel, Talal, Erica, Phil, Susanna, and Mazen.